So we have some huge news coming out of the Supreme Court today. It's news that we've been waiting for years, and it's that the Supreme Court has finally granted review to a state rifle ban case. So they're finally going to be addressing whether states, localities, and just the government in general can place restrictions on the possession and purchase of AR-15 style rifles or other types of semi-automatic rifles. This is going to impact a lot of states that currently have these types of restrictions, like California, New York, New Jersey, and other localities. Today on the Supreme Court's order list, we got a notice from the Supreme Court that, great news, they finally are taking up a rifle ban case. Actually, they're going to take up two cases. One of them we've talked about a lot, which is the Vera-Montes case coming out of Cook County, I believe, and that deals with some restrictions out of Illinois, again, restricting the purchase and possession of certain semi-automatic rifles. They also granted review to a second case, which is the Grant versus Higgins case. That case comes out of Connecticut, and that deals with the Connecticut rifle ban. So in these two consolidated cases, the Supreme Court is finally going to address whether these, government entities, whether states, localities, etc., can place restrictions on AR-15 style rifles, or whether that's a violation of the Second Amendment. Again, this is huge news finally coming out of the Supreme Court. They're finally going to be addressing this. I know last term after the Snope denial, Kavanaugh mentioned that in a term or two, they were going to finally have to address this issue. And now it seems like that was exactly what the plan was. They are going to be taking this up next term. Here they're going to hear oral arguments. And by the end of next Supreme Court term, we are going to get our answer on these types of rifle ban cases. Now, specifically when it comes to the grant that was issued today on the order list, this is what it states from the Supreme Court. The petition for writs of cert are granted as to questions presented by the petition in number 25-238. The cases are consolidated and a total of 1 hour is allotted for oral arguments. So they're saying that they are going to be addressing the question presented specifically in the Grant versus Higgins case. So let's look at what specifically was the question presented in Grant versus Higgins and what are they going to be addressing. Now, the question presented in the Grant versus Higgins case, which the Supreme Court just granted review in, is this specifically: whether the Second and 14th Amendments guarantee the right to possess semi-automatic rifles that are in common use for lawful purposes, including AR-15. So that specifically is the question that the Supreme Court will hear arguments on next term and that they will issue a ruling on. Again, that is huge news. It's something we've been waiting for years. And now I'm sure a lot of these states like California, New York, New Jersey, and all these other localities are very concerned because the Supreme Court has finally decided to step in and address that issue. Now, one of the looming questions is, what happened with some of these magazine ban cases that were pending and have been relisted multiple times. For example, the Duncan versus Bonta case, which has been going on for years. That deals with California's ban on magazines that hold more than 10 rounds. And you had a lot of other cases dealing with rifle bans and magazine bans. And on this order list, we did not get an answer specifically on those cases. We did not see a grant in them, and we also did not see a denial. So likely what is going to happen is that those cases are going to be held over for next term. They're going to be put on hold. And then likely the Supreme Court is not going to take any activity on those cases until they issue their official ruling in the Vera-Montes and Grant versus Higgins case. Once the Supreme Court issues their ruling in those cases, likely what's going to happen is you will see a GVR in Duncan, the Gator Customs case, and all these other cases that were pending, like the NAGR versus Lamont case. So what is happening is the Supreme Court is anticipating that whatever ruling they issue in Vera-Montes and Grant versus Higgins, addressing arms bans, addressing whether AR-15s are protected arms and whether these types of outright bans on the purchase and possession violate the Second Amendment, they're going to obviously believe, and what is likely going to happen is that that ruling there is going to impact all these other cases, and then we're likely going to see probably a grant, vacate, and remand type of order on all those cases, or we might see some sort of summary order on those cases saying, look at Vera-Montes, look at Grant versus Higgins, and reevaluate them, or they might just say maybe that the ruling there in Vera-Montes and Grant versus Higgins directly impact those magazine bans because they're also probably going to be doing some sort of arms ban analysis and determining what type of arms are protected by the Second Amendment, which is directly going to impact all of those magazine ban issues. So this is great news. I wanted to get this to you guys as soon as possible. Again, it's something that we've been waiting for a long time. And finally, the Supreme Court has stepped in and they're going to be hearing arguments on a rifle ban case, actually 2 consolidated cases, and then they're going to be issuing their order next term. So this is something that we're going to be tracking. We're going to see, the briefings and how that plays out. There's going to be a lot of, groups that are jumping into this, filing amicus briefs. We're also probably going to see the Trump DOJ, Harmeet Dillon in her office, filing amicus briefs in support. They might even ask to participate in the oral arguments when these cases go to the Supreme Court. So I anticipate that will also happen as well. But for now, this is great news. The Supreme Court has taken up a rifle ban case, actually 2 consolidated cases. We did not see a denial in any of those. Also, right now, we did not see a grant in any of the magazine ban cases, but likely what's going to happen is they're being held over to next term, and then they're going to be GVR'd or something else will happen to them in light of what the Supreme Court says in Ver-Montes and the Grant case. So again, great news. Let me know your guys' thoughts down below. Let me know any questions that you currently have right now. This is something that we're going to have to analyze going further and also break down a little bit more some of the far-reaching implications of this, but I wanted to get this good news to you guys right now. But again, let me know your comments down below. What do you think about this? And again, I'm very excited because this is something that we've been waiting for a long time. And this is something that directly impacts me since I live in the state of California and live under these types of rifle ban laws and these types of restrictions. So again, thank you guys so much for all of your support. If you like this video and you like this type of content and you want to make sure you get it going forward, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and turn on all the notification icons to ensure you never miss these updates. But as always, thank you so much for all of your support. And never forget, this nation was built by armed scholars, and this nation will be maintained by armed scholars.